You're very welcome to the screening of Unsilencing Black Voices as part of the Dublin Arts and Human Rights Festival 2020, hosted by Smashing Times International Centre for the Arts and Equality. My name is Dil Vikramasinghe, and I'm a broadcaster, director of Insight Matters, and a trainee psychotherapist. And today's screening of Unsilencing Black Voices is a project created to highlight the different forms of racism through the lived experience of the Black community living here in Ireland. And I'm absolutely thrilled that the two filmmakers behind this beautiful piece, Catherine Osikoya and Sandrine Owase Dahiro, will be joining us after the screening for a discussion. And also, for a special treat, we are joined by Kwesi Boyce, who is the founder and director and drama facilitator of MAD Youth Theatre Dundalk and County Loud. So without further ado, let's have a sit back, enjoy the screening, and please don't forget to join us for the post-screen discussion. Enjoy.
We as Black people are tired of being complimented on how well we speak English, even though a lot of us have been here all our lives. Tired of being asked, no, but where are you actually from? And then repeating the question because giving an answer such as I'm from Mayo or I'm from Limerick or I'm from Dublin is just not an acceptable enough answer for you.
When I'm playing sports, when I win awards, I'm Irish. My parents are questioned. My brother stopped on the street for being Black. Oh, I'm African. I'm Congolese. I'm not Irish anymore. I'm only Irish for the benefits you.
Black Lives Matter is not just an American issue. Black Lives Matter is happening right now. Black people all around the world are standing up and saying enough is enough when it comes to racism. Racism is an evil disease in Ireland. We must speak up and vow to never remain silent when it comes to the issue of racism. Black Lives Matter today, tomorrow, and every other day.
For many of us, primary school is a pleasant experience. As we are taking our first steps into the educational world, imagine this experience being stunted and replaced by racism.
I was the only Black person in my class, and me and my sister were the only Black people in my primary school the entire time that we were in primary school. And I remember in junior infants, a boy in my class, he told me that the reason my skin was so dark was because my mum left me outside in the sun to burn because she didn't love me. And I went home crying because I was very upset. I thought it was ugly, I thought it was disgusting. And so my mum went to go speak to the principal the next day and said, you know, this can't continue. And the principal said kids will be kids and that it is not their responsibility to educate children on race. You know, we move on, but I had an ongoing thing with this boy in which he was always making off comments about me being Black. And then in 4th class, I remember he was the first person to ever call me a nigger, and I felt helpless. It reminded me of being that 4-year-old girl back in junior infants again, and it is something that has always stuck with me. It is a memory that I think about like literally so often, that I can tell you exactly what I was wearing, exactly where I was, exactly who I was with. And yeah, that is my first ever experiences of racism were in primary school.
I remember in first class, this girl used to bully me all the time. One time she had cornered me by the bathroom, and then she was proper like basically just being racist. She was talking from the color of my skin, how my skin was ugly, not beautiful. She even asked, how do I have friends looking the way I look?
I just moved to Ireland in 2010. I started primary school in Limerick, and I just wanted to play with people, and they wouldn't want to play with me. They said my hair was dirty and that I smelled. And when we were walking home from school, they were making monkey noises, and they called my older brother a nigger.
I used to be really good friends with a girl when I was growing up through primary school when I first moved here, and we were friends all throughout primary school, and then we went to secondary school and people started treating me a certain way, and after a while she would like start hanging out with me less, and she didn't really want to be seen with me, and then she wouldn't start speaking to me. So obviously I asked her one day and I was like, what has changed? And she was like, I don't want to be friends with you because it's embarrassing, because like nobody likes you because you're black.
In 2010, the Teachers Union of Ireland conducted a survey, and the results showed 46% of respondents reported racist incidents in their schools. There needs to be a clear distinction between bullying and racism in secondary schools. So many racist incidents have been brushed aside as bullying, while in fact it was subtle racism.
Secondary school wasn't the best for me growing up. I actually changed schools in first years and told my mom that it was for the better facilities in the other school. A complete lie. I was physically bullied by this one girl in the school and mentally bullied by a group of popular girls in the school as well. That girl would pull my braids as I walked by. She'd make fun of my black features like my nose and my lips as well. She'd throw things at me, and a few times pulling the chair out from under me when I tried to sit down. But I remember knowing that I was going to leave that school, and I remember in the final exams I wrote her a letter, very mature for a 12-year-old, saying and asking what exactly I did to her for her to do all this to me. Not knowing that it was racism itself, but just thinking it was all my fault.
My experience with racism happened when I was in secondary school. There were kids that would come up to me and call me dirty monkey, you should go wash yourself, you smell. And from there it progressed onwards. I just started isolating myself. And from there, when I'd go into class and we didn't have assigned seats, people just wouldn't want to sit beside me. People wouldn't want to pick me for teams, and people wouldn't want to invite me to their birthday party. Like, there was one year I was in junior cert, and there was this girl, I thought we were friends, but she invited everyone else in the year except me. And it just goes to show that, like, all those really nuanced ways to exclude people really hurt people's feelings.
First or so week of school, we were in religion class talking about immigrants, how and why people might come to this and other countries. I remember specifically because I was in the back talking to a new friend I made that day. I didn't input much in the class and stayed quiet, and out of nowhere, I was asked if I was a refugee. I remember how quiet the classroom went, how everyone stared, how my heart pounded in my chest as I managed to gasp out the words that I was Irish, just like the rest of the people here.
I think a lot of us right now are thinking about, the racism we face as black individuals in Ireland. Racism is real. It does exist, especially in Ireland. Whether it's, the sly comments or, the microaggressions. I can remember as early on as maybe 7 or 8 years old, walking out of school, and a bunch of random lads came up behind me and put a bag over my head and called me the N-word. Or the multiple occasions where, whether it's the lady behind the counter in the post office, or teachers, or just random people telling me, oh, you speak good English, even though English is my first language. Or for my science teacher who took one of my braids and, while holding a Bunsen burner, asking, what would happen if I set one of these on fire. And even for my English secondary school teacher who called upon me to read out a poem by a Jamaican poet because she thought I would have a good Jamaican accent. You know, I think people really need to check themselves and their ignorance right now because racism is not acceptable.
There was a group of people I called friends at the time, and one in particular would repeatedly show me racist memes that she would get from her uncle. On a separate occasion, we were in her car and we were having a conversation. I can't remember what it was about, but somehow led her to say, I would never say N-word ER, but I would say, and she then proceeded to say the less offensive version of you know what. Not to mention, when she got a call from that same uncle a few days later, he greeted me with, "Hey Blackie." This isn't even scraping the surface of the amount of racism I have experienced since I was born in Ireland almost 20 years ago.
Growing up in a predominantly white, rural Irish town as a minority, of course, I've experienced the racism that exists subtly on the surface of our society. I remember my dad running for town council and having his posters all over the town. I remember looking up to my dad and really thinking, wow, he's really stepping out of what's the norm in a small rural Irish town. Driving to school the next day to see my dad's posters defaced with racial slurs written all over them and having to take them down. Seeing that was very hard, and it made me realise how the racism that exists in Ireland, it's subtle but very, very there.
When I was about 15 years old, I was after coming from the library studying, and I was at the bus stop waiting for the bus to head home. And it was a couple of kids actually. They were between the ages of 8 and 10, and they actually called me the N-word. Now, I am of South African origin, and the N-word isn't used there. We have a different racial slur. Did these kids even understand what they were saying and what this word actually meant? And on that day, I brushed it off.
College is supposed to be a place of learning. There is no excuse to why people should still harbour racist thoughts. The notion that kids will be kids was debunked after secondary school. There should be no excuse for racism in a third-level institution.
Growing up in Ireland, I have experienced a myriad of racism, whether it is like on my walk home and getting called the N-word, or else if I was to pick out one instance that stands out the most, it would have to be in my final year of college, where I lived in a house, an all-girls house, where it was just one series after series after series of microaggressive racism. And one thing that would stand out to me the most is when I had a friend over who happened to be black, and the girls made sure that they took out all of the electronics in the house all around their rooms just in case that my friend robbed them, and they wouldn't let me know that issue. They just had to let my other housemate, who happened to be white, to say that, oh, this person can't stay over because we don't know him, even though within the house, like, we've always had like friends come in and out, but like this was the first instance where it was like the first black person outside of me in the house, and they felt like a sudden threat within the household. And the fact that they didn't come to me and say to me they knew that that was wrong, so they had to go around to my other housemate in order to kind of diffuse the situation. And I did report the situation, but there was nothing said for it, because all they cared about was just the fact that, oh no, like, what would other people think if you say that we were racist, instead of being like, okay, we've been racist to you, how can we help?
I was taking a walk by the riverbank behind UL the other day, and these young lads were walking towards me, and they could see that I was coming, but clearly none of them were gonna kind of move away from the road. And then this one time, this guy stared me straight in the eye and spat on the floor. I didn't think he meant anything until another friend of mine mentioned that it happened to her as well. And it kind of makes you feel dirty after, because you don't even realize it until it happens, and you're like, Why do I feel so bad about this? It's almost like they look at you in disgust and spit in the floor, trying to make it look like you irritate them. And that is such a terrible thing.
So a few years ago, I was in Eddie Rocket in Dublin, tried to get a seat, so I was queuing. I was waiting there for at least 10-15 minutes, waiting for my boyfriend. I would try to catch the attention of the people who were walking there, but no one came to me. They were start serving people who came after me. I was like really shocked, upset. When my boyfriend came, then who's white, they just run to him and start asking for many people where you want to sit. And I was really upset because I was like, oh, I was there for 10-15 minutes waiting to get a seat and no one noticed me.
My experience with racism was the first time I was coming down from the library. I was coming back from the library with a friend of mine, two black guys. We were walking down, just going home. And we met a Chinese child and mother coming towards us. And the child turned and said, "Black monkeys." It took me off. I thought he was joking, but my other friend took it very serious. I was like, he responded back and said, "Something is wrong with you," or something. Then the mom was very apologetic. She came back. She was like, "Oh, we're sorry. He's sorry. He didn't mean it." She felt very embarrassed. And what was in my mind was like, where did this child learn it from? Because normally he wouldn't say a child wasn't born this way. So it's either from school or from the parents.
In 2019, INAR's report showed that 37 racist incidents that were reported came from the workplace. If I am qualified in my job, why does it matter what my last name is? Why can't I get an equal opportunity?
The beauty industry, the modeling industry in Ireland needs a lot of work. In many cases, I found myself having to do my own hair and makeup before shows because of just makeup artists refusing to expand their experience with darker skinned women. They just refuse to learn how to deal with afros and kinky, even wavy textures. Their go-to styles will always be straightening the hair. There was actually one incident in particular when I did the Rosa Trilly fashion show with my agency. I came to the show with my hair chemically straightened to make it a little bit easy for the hairstylist to try at least to recreate the styles that they're doing on the white models on mine. But even that in itself, my hair being chemically straightened to the point of damage, that still was not enough, that I had to just go back to my traditional style of slicking my hair back. And obviously I didn't come prepared, and I didn't bring my own hair products, and they obviously didn't have my hair products, so they used wax. And just the texture of my hair, they're trying to hold it down, it just didn't work. Just that as well is just the lack of even just hair products and beauty products. It's just drove me insane.
In the professional field, while trying to apply for jobs, I found that when I wrote my actual name on my CV, nobody wanted to hire me, even though I have a good CV and I have experience. And when I changed it to a more Irish sounding name, I got calls from every company that I applied for. I was called for an interview in a small retail store. When I arrived at the store, I could tell that the store owner and the manager were not pleased to see me. And when they called me, the very first thing they asked me was if I was Irish, because my name was very strange. And I said yes, that I am Irish. And they persisted to ask more questions. They asked about how long I've been in the country. They asked if I'm illegal in Ireland. They asked me how I've made money in the past, how I afford to go to college, how I pay for college, how I have been surviving unemployed for the past couple of months. They asked me if my family stayed at home and live off government benefits and things like that. And then they proceeded to ask me the professions of each and every one of my family members. I was not asked a single interview question in this interview, and I left there feeling confused and violated.
Racism is something that is passed down from generation to generation. If we do not speak up, the next generation will suffer.
My mum told me that when I was about 5 or 6 that she watched me try and scrub the brown from my skin and cry because it wouldn't come off. Years later then, I now have to endure hearing my 5-year-old son telling me that he wished that he had skin like his dad and that he wants to be white like everybody else. That just kills me. And as much as I try to lift him up and try and help him to feel black and proud, his peers, the media and day-to-day life, they have more influence than anything. There's no reason why a child should feel badly about their skin colour, and that's something that comes from the top down, through parents and families, friends. Racism is a taught thing.
Racism leaves irreversible wounds. You may refuse to see them, but they're always there, slowly chipping away at us. We try so hard to forget these painful memories.
So I've been living in Ireland for most of my life. We moved here when I was about 5 and I'm 24 this year. And I would say for most of my life living in Ireland, I've definitely had experiences with racism from a young age up until now, really. So when I was younger, a lot of it would have been, name calling, saying stuff like I look like a monkey, or oh, you're adopted, because I'm mixed race and my mum and my sister are white. So I was the only kind of mixed race child. So it was definitely a case of, being told that you're adopted, or you came in from the back of a truck or back of a food truck, you snuck into the country, that kind of thing. I was out in Dolan's bar, and this guy behind me just pulled my hair, and I turned around and I go to him, what the hell, why did you do that? There was no need. And he kind of started laughing. He's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I thought you were wearing a wig. And I just kind of thought that would have been it's even worse that he thought it was a wig, because clearly his intention was to humiliate me by pulling off my wig.
This is an interesting topic to speak on, really, because these aren't really memories that I actively hold on to. So when I was asked to do this, I kind of had to sift through my mind and recall some pretty painful memories, to be honest. I remember growing up in Cork and just I don't want to say daily basis, but on a regular enough basis, it was something I experienced. Just things like walking through my stay with my friend who's also black. I remember there'd be these kids that would usually be outside their house playing, as kids do. And literally whenever we'd walk past, they would shout racial slurs at us. And they're calling us these names that they probably don't really understand the meaning of, or the power and hate behind those words that they used, but they just did it so regularly and casually. And that's part of the problem. Kids don't develop these ideas or come to these biased conclusions on the human eye on their own. They're taught to them by who? By their parents, by society. Honestly, I feel like that in itself is a testament to the importance of education. Because honestly, racism is ignorance. And Martin Luther King Jr. himself said, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and think critically. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education. Intelligence plus character. And people with biased views or ideas are just lacking in both.
As you can see, racism is something that is experienced from as early as primary school. This is not to label Ireland as a racist country, but to merely highlight the instances that have occurred in our homeland. In future, if you see racism, call it out. By remaining silent, you are being complacent in our suffering.
My skin color should not be used as a weapon against me. I should be able to live my life to its fullest, without fear of being judged or discriminated. We are all human beings, and we all deserve to be treated equally. Ireland is our home, and it's time to fully acknowledge how we're becoming more multicultural and diverse.
Hi, my name is Sandrine DAHRF, and I am one of the co-founders for our project Unsilencing Black Voices. I got involved in the project as I thought that it was about time that I started talking about my own experience of racism within the Irish community, but I also wanted to provide a platform for other Black voices within the Irish community to talk about their experience of race. I hope that our project will provide a platform where their voices can feel heard and finally acknowledged in order to create a safe space to discuss this issue of race. I have found that working on this project, I have found my voice, and I vow to never be silent when it comes to the issue of racism ever again.
Hi, my name is Catherine Oshikoya, and I am one of the co-founders for this project, Unsilencing Black Voices. I got involved in this project in the current light of everything that's happening in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement. I thought it was important to highlight the fact that racism is a pressing issue in Ireland, even though it is not as blatantly obvious as it is over in the States. This project's aim is to help raise the voices that have been silently suffering under the cusp of racism for so long, and for them to freely express the encounters that they've had in Ireland. I hope moving forward that we all treat each other equally as human beings, as the world is meant to be. Thank you.
So you're very welcome back for the post-screening discussion that we just saw the Unsilencing Black Voices screening as part of the Dublin Arts and Human Rights Festival 2020, hosted by Smashing Times International Centre for Arts and Equality. My name is Dil Vikramasinghe, and I have to say I got goosebumps. I was very close to tears throughout that the screening. So just I suppose I've been living in Ireland for 20 years. I'm a first generation migrant. I grew up in Italy, and a lot of things that were talked about there I experienced when I was growing up in Italy, because I was the only child of color in my school. And one memory that I have very distinct was like sitting in the bath, scrubbing my own skin, wanting to be white like my friends. And it's what breaks my heart is that in 2020 in Ireland, there is kids who are experiencing the same thing, and that for me is an absolute travesty, because we need to do better. So it gives me huge pleasure to welcome to the post screening discussion the filmmakers, the two powerful individuals behind this film, Catherine Osikoya and Sandrine Owase DAHRF. And we're also joined by Kwesi Boyce, who is the founder and director and drama facilitator of Mad Youth Theatre in Dundalk and County Louth. You're all very welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Look at you, beautiful people. Yes.
Hi,
so
thank
beautiful.
you. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Okay, so we might go to the filmmakers first. Catherine, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I suppose what brought you to this point and creating this film. So tell us a little bit about yourself. And I'm not going to ask what we get always asked, where are you really from? Which is like, never to ask that question from anyone.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Catherine Oshikoya. I'm originally from Nigeria, but I live in Galway. I'm an architecture student in the University of Limerick. And human rights has always been a passion of mine, but during the summer, a major movement was across the world, the Black Lives Matter movement. So what happened was, attended the protests in Limerick to pay homage to the death of George Floyd. And it was just so to see all these people in unity to show that Black people are important, every life is important. So what happened after that was I was getting a load of comments being like, why are you making such a big deal of it over here in Ireland? And I was like,
I'm pretty sure that it's not, because there's people who have experienced different things like this in their life in Ireland, but just haven't spoken about it. So I decided to then have a call on Instagram um, to signal to people who have witnessed or racism in their lives to put a 1 minute video for voice report protector privacy who those had before.
Sorry, Catherine, I think we're having trouble with your connection. We might go over to Sandrine and maybe come back to you. Catherine, is that okay? Because I think we lost your connection there for, yeah. Oh, you're back. Okay, maybe try again. We kind of lost you in the last couple of seconds.
Okay, I was just saying that it was just how we have come together to do this documentary, myself and Sandrine, was as a result of people willing to rehash those awful memories that they went through, because without those people's voices, this thing wouldn't have been, this wouldn't have come to light. So we want to thank those people too.
Thank you, Catherine. Sandrine, how did you meet Catherine? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sandrine DAHRF, and I am originally from Rwanda, and I would have moved to Ireland in 2006, and I live in Carlow. I am currently a first-year PhD student in contemporary African literature, so I've always had like a vast interest in African lives, and when you talk about African lives, racism is something that always comes across to. So I've always wanted to do something from it, but I've always just been too scared to do that. So during the summer, when Kathy put up an Instagram post about wanting to just talk about racism, I felt like compelled and just like my moral obligation to kind of talk to her about it. And like the both of us really bonded with that, because we noticed that our experiences, they weren't unique and they weren't distinctive. We've both experienced them from Carlow and to Galway, and then we've both been brought together in Limerick and in Newell. So the both of us then like just decided to put a call out there and ask people to just recall memory, which we knew that it was something that we asked that they recalled something that stuck through them, and like which was a distinctive feature of racism. So we were delighted to just get as many respondents. And the one thing which we wanted we wanted the people who were telling their voices to be central to their own narrative. So we didn't script anything. We just asked them to think of one thing. So like that was the most important thing, where like it was their truth that they were telling. And if someone felt uncomfortable, that was up to them. But like the people who were willing to recall that trauma, they were speaking themselves and they were being central to that narrative. Because with a lot of times where you're talking about racism, it's always white people talking about racism about Black people. So we really wanted to give the Black voice its own thing. So like with me and Kathy, like we didn't edit any of it. Like it was just recall one moment, give us 1 minute of it. And that was it. So that was the main thing, which we wanted to make sure that they felt central to their own narrative and we didn't dilute anything of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandrine. And speaking of strong Black voices, Kwesi joins us as well. Kwesi, tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've been very vocal through your work in the arts around better representation.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Kwesi Boyce. I am an artistic director and founder of Mad Youth Theatre here in Dundalk, County Louth. I have been involved in the arts for a long time, and I've been, working with young people in my community for quite a while. And through my work, I we like to unpack and like to explore all sorts of discrimination, especially racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. And well, racism it plays very close to my heart. So being a person of color, in the arts, and understanding how important representation is, and using my work to find and discuss and explore the issues with young people to help them further their knowledge on how to kind of stamp out racism here in this country. It's it's compelling what's going on right now, and I like to say, a huge respect to the young ladies who are doing exemplary work, and to other organizations like the Black and Irish Instagram and Facebook page who have been, you know, given putting the voice of Black Irish people out there. And I want to continue to do my part as a person who live here in this country to help change the way we think and help to flatten out and kill discrimination and racism in this country through my work, through the arts. And I want to say everyone is to, if you see it, call it out. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen to anyone. Any kind of discrimination of any shape and form. Together, we are just only better for it. And as a country, we could definitely do better.
Absolutely, very, very wise words. Catherine, what's the response been? I mean, I just saw the film for the first time, and I was in tears. I had goosebumps. I had chills. Obviously, I empathized a lot with a lot of the stories as I experienced them myself. But what's been the response of, say, people who are, who are white? And was did your film shake their white privilege?
In my own group of friends anyway, they didn't realize the extent that it went to. So, like, listening to all those people rehash their racial incidences, it just made them so moved and so touched that they had to go and educate themselves further. So, within our documentary and on our website, we had a load of resources there for people to go read, to go and educate themselves. So there was like a number of movies, a number of books that they can read, and people coming up to me being like, just like in the way that they speak to their friends. So like saying, is what I'm saying racist, or is there a different way that I can say about this? I mean, it's more people being more mindful of the things that they say. Because like in our Irish culture, it's like in terms of like people being in college, it's all under the umbrella of like banter and crack, being like, okay, I didn't mean to say that. I mean, like, it was just a joke. But people are understanding nowadays that people things, and because that we haven't spoken about it doesn't mean that we're not hurting. So I think people are genuinely more mindful from my perspective.
Because it's all microaggressions, and all of it, it accumulates, and it will have an impact on a person's mental health. I know I've struggled with my mental health, a lot of it because of the racism I experienced, and the shame that I internalized because of the color of my skin when I was growing up in Italy. And it was traumatic for the people to share their stories, because you ask them to rehash something that was extremely painful for them. Can I ask you what and this is the psychotherapist in me asking this question, what have the participants done or found, I suppose, helpful to mind themselves in relation to their experience of racism and their experience of trauma? What have they done to kind of heal, I suppose? Sandrine.
I think the first thing that they've learned to heal is by forgiving themselves, because I think when racism happens to you, you blame yourself. So you think like, if I wasn't black, if I wasn't this. So with a lot of the conversation we've had, like people, it's just been like a lot of like self-love and self-recognition of just being like, what happened to me wasn't fair, and there was nothing that I could have done or said towards it. So it was just like self-forgiveness. And I think with our documentary, we provided people with a platform of just reliving that trauma, but then also like once they spoke that out, they realized like that's going to be the last time they will ever let other people be racist towards them. So like with one of the voices who spoke, like she's actually just in the middle of producing her own YouTube channel and like talking and tackling issues such as race. And like it's so great to see that, where it's like for so long like people have just been so silent and haven't spoken out about it. And I think with me and Catherine, like the one thing we've been so proud of is just being that voice, like how we've been the first to step forward, but then like we're just encouraging other people to like speak out, because just because you didn't speak on our documentary doesn't mean like you shouldn't be speaking out to other people. So with the people which participated in the documentary, we've just seen a change from them, like where they're just unapologetically black now, do you know, like where they just don't care like what people will think, like they've embraced that and they've forgiven themselves, and like we're able to just talk about it now without it being a taboo topic. So I think like that's just been a really overwhelming aspect of it, where we didn't really think it was going to happen, like where we've seen the broken down barriers within those people that we interviewed. We had 20 voices, and we've just, you know, like going on Instagram now and seeing them like proudly post things about Black Lives Matter, which they hadn't posted before, just because their voice is out there. So like it's been overwhelming, but like we're just delighted with that response.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's one of the reasons I decided to train as a psychotherapist, because I think when I had my mental health issues, I was looking for a therapist of color that I could go and see, who would really understand my experience. And now it's one of the things I think it prompted me to be a therapist. So because I think it's really important to have that connection. Kwesi, can I ask you, for someone who's now, you've been doing this for so many years, you know, working in this field and constantly championing, equality, diversity, and trying to push people to really question and not be complacent about racism in Ireland. How do you keep going, Kwesi? Because sometimes it gets tiring, and I'm talking for myself, okay? But I'm hoping to maybe get some tips off you, because sometimes I feel sometimes it's like an upward hill battle.
It definitely feels that way. People like myself and people of color, we tend to go through a period of fatigue where it's like, okay, I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm tired of it. And that's when, at that point, in that moment, where you have to find that internal courage, because you're not just doing it for yourself when you speak out, or when you challenge the system, or when you speak up and you speak out. You're doing it for someone else, or you're doing it for the future. You're doing it for young people of the future. So you have to find the courage and the strength. And even though it might be exhausting, it's you just have to keep on plowing forward. I'm certainly not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my children and other parents' children, and I want other people. I want educators. I want school principals. I want politicians. So all start speaking out and stepping up when it comes to the issue of discrimination and racism in this country. And not, it may feel like a taboo subject, and a lot of people kind of eggshell and tiptoe around it, but you have to come forward and you have to speak up, because the microaggression and the passive racism is there and is constant. And what may seem to be banter and a bit of crack for one person, it's pain and degradation for another. And yeah, people have to start changing the way they think of what banter is and what crack is. They have to, like, jokes and these little passive jokes are not funny, and they're hurtful. And as a black person who've been on on the receiving end of that, when someone have a bit of a crack, or jokingly say, "Oh, I could say nigga, can I?" I like, no, you can't. And I don't I don't even use that word. I don't use it as a term of endearment or anything. I get rid of that in my vocabulary, and I think other black people should do so the same. You see it on the social media, you see it on TikToks, and you see it on Instagram, that when they're doing all these voiceovers, the N word is dropped quite frequently in these songs. It's like, nah, stop using that material. If you are a person that is white or Irish or whatever, they are not something to be used. There's so many different ways you could, get rid of racism. And I would like to call all the educators to also step up in schools, because the young people and spend a lot of time in school, and in school is where you could start talking about the issue and start, unpacking it and creating a more equal environment for young people.
For years, I worked as a trainer for the Yellow Flag program, which is a program run by the Irish Travel Movement, which basically helps schools and classrooms become more inclusive. So it's been a privilege for me to do that. But I, as a mother of two, I've got a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl, and I'm actually quite surprised that they haven't burst into the room. Because they have often done that in the middle of a talk. I always consider myself, as a parent, I'm the primary educator of my children. So before we even, mention teachers, as parents, we have a responsibility. And one question people ask me is, how soon can I talk about racism and homophobia and transphobia and sexism and misogyny to kids? And I say from zero. From the books that we use. Catherine, can I ask you, how would you answer that? Because I really feel parents can need to really, because as Kwesi said, a lot of parents, a lot of people are stepping on eggshells. They're like, oh gosh, I don't know when to do it. Should I say it? Should I not say it? So what do you think, Catherine? When would you like people to start having these conversations at home?
I mean, some parents have blankets and they don't need to learn about this because it's an issue. But like, if children can experience racism from as young as 5 years old, why can't they be taught about how to combat that issue? So it's not a thing where it's just adults talking about it. I mean, children have to be taught from a very, very young age.
Yeah. Because I suppose I'm in a same-sex relationship, and I knew, we had to talk to our kids about how did they come about. They were going to go to school, and my Phoenix was 3 when he started the kindergarten, and in the first week he came home. We were eating our dinner, and he was like, "Where's my daddy?" I nearly choked on my dinner because I was kind of hoping he was going to bring it up when he was 5, not at 3. So we had the conversation. So it's never too soon. And actually, that reminds me, we take our kids to protests all the time, and we took them to the Black Lives Matters protest outside the American Embassy a few months ago. And I'd already we had spent the whole morning now. So 5 and 3, okay. So he was like 4.5 at that stage, and my daughter was 2.5. So we spent the whole morning making posters, Black Lives Matters posters. So we were talking about it, and they were asking questions. And here's the thing, right? In the middle of the protest, when everybody kneels down, that moment where, hundreds of people kneel down, and my son's little voice piped up and said, "Mama, what's happening? Why is everybody kneeling down?" And I had to explain to my son then and there, that's how George Floyd died. A police officer knelt on his neck until he stopped breathing. And like that, he said, "But isn't the policeman's job to protect us?" And I said, "Yes, son, you're absolutely right." And like I'm like, even when I'm saying that story, I feel so. My heart aches because I wish I could protect my children from the reality that's out there, but we would be doing a disservice if we were doing that. We have to tell them that this is how the world is, so they can be ready to be, the next generation of activists. And Sandrine, can I ask you, do you feel somewhat like, and people who are, I suppose, off color living in Ireland, like automatically you have to become an activist? And I don't think everybody wants to be an activist, but you automatically have to kind of take this cloak on, this I don't know, this title. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think especially this summer with just like how everyone has just been talking about Black Lives Matter. I think when someone just sees someone black, like straight away it's, oh, a black person speaks for everyone, like, and it kind of goes back into that narrative about like how Africa is one country. So I don't think a lot of people are even understanding like how Africa is 54 different countries, it's different cultures. And I think like when it comes to racism, like how certain cultures have experienced it more than others. So I think I've found it like even when the documentary came out, I've had to like act a certain way now because like people would know what you're doing and like they would know your name. So it's like if you're too loud, then you're falling into the stereotype of the angry black woman. So like I've had to maneuver myself there, like where I didn't want to be an activist. Like I just wanted to create something where it was just going to be impactful and help other people who are suffering with racism to speak out. So I think there is pressure there. When one Black person speaks out, then it's like they're the voice of the people, so that all of the pressure gets to them. So like if myself and Catherine were to fall, all of Africa will be doomed, even though it's just two of us, which is one from Nigeria, one from Rwanda. So like that's a lot of pressure there, like where if we go on Twitter and we're to say something, it'd be like, oh, Black people are all crazy, do you know, like, and it's just me. So there's a lot of pressure there, and like that just goes back to just the stereotype of what people still perceive as Africa as just one country, and like one Black person, if they experience racism, they all experience it. So like it's in that sense of where like if one type of Black people are okay with the N-word being around them, white people just presumably think like, oh, I have a Black friend who lets me say that the whole time, I can say that to you. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. So then it's so hard to navigate that. So then like if you are being vocal about Black Lives Matter, it's like you're anti-white, you're this, and I'm like, no, I just care about this topic. So like, yeah, it's just you automatically just been put into the activism role just because you're speaking out about it, and like you just have the pressure of the world then to like, if you succeed, it's like, okay, Africa is good, even though it's like, as I say, like just one person. And like if myself and Catherine were to fail, then we know the pressure that'll be there, like just in regards to like a negative brush being painted across all of the Black and Irish community in Ireland. So like it is a lot of immense pressure for us, but we're taking on this stride because we want to make a change. So like we are going to keep actively speaking out, and if that categorizes us in the activism category, then that's fine.
It's so funny because hearing you speak, you're saying, if you're vocal, you are categorized as an angry African woman. There's another very common stereotype is an angry lesbian. That's like, and that is looked upon as very negative. You're a man hater, you're an angry lesbian. And I'm like, again, I'm only angry because there's good reason. There's inequality here. There's injustice. So it's like it's so funny. I just made that connection that there is the way immediately they flip it. It makes it, they make you the irrational one as opposed to the situation, the circumstances that you're in. That's what the mistake is. And like it reminds me how they always say, like I've heard people say, being gay doesn't cause mental health issues. Homophobia does, so being Black doesn't cause mental health issues. It's racism that causes mental health issues. It's not the individual, it's the environment. And Kwesi, you're a dad. You've got 4 kids at home. 4.
Yeah.
Well done. Somebody give this man a medal. How are you, I suppose, as a parent, preparing your kids? Because I'm doing my bit in preparing my kids in relation to, being kids of a same-sex couple and all the rest. And I mean, my kids having a very long and complicated surname. So what are you doing to prepare your kids?
Well, what my wife and I have been doing is to teach our kids about kindness and allyship, and not being afraid to stand up for other people when they can't. And that kindness and that kind of that has been, I've seen it in my little boys. I've been seeing it in my 2 older girls, that they are not afraid to stand up and say, hey, that's wrong, or that makes me feel uncomfortable, don't do that. And it makes me proud to see the strength in them to have that ability to do that. During the lockdown, it was a period in time where it felt right to kind of speak to my 2 smaller ones about who they are and identity, and what it means to be a person of color, and just having them recognize and appreciate that, okay, you might be different color skin, and it's beautiful, and it's okay to be different, and love who you are, because that self-love is really important to take, for my kids to kind of carry out life with, because people always try to point out their differences or make them feel different because of their color of their skin or the texture of their hair, or whatever it might be. Is I want to we're constantly trying to empower them, to make them feel like they are who they are, and of course they're Irish 100%. It's crazy to make of course there's a part that we kind of shared our different cultures. Like, I'm from the Caribbean, and I love to share that culture with my kids, and they love it and appreciate it, but also I want them to embrace who they are as Irish people as well. So kindness is important, resilience is important, and compassion and empathy for people who are different from you is important, and that's what we teach in our home.
What a great dad. Oh, brought tears to my eyes here. I think my son's first teacher parent meeting when he was 3, they told me his most, I suppose, his characteristic that really stood out for them was his keen sense of justice. And he was 3. I just, like, when they said that to me, I just burst into tears, because I was like, oh wow, he's 3 and he's already got a keen sense of justice. I mean, like, I felt so proud. So we are running out of time, but I want very quickly to go back to all of you for a very quick question. Anyone listen to this, okay, who is of color, black, has a disability, is a traveler, is gay, trans, is someone that will deem themselves as being different and is struggling with being excluded and not fitting in. We've all had that experience. What would you like to say to them, Catherine?
Just to let them know you're not alone, that we're all in this together. I mean, God brought us onto this planet to be that we're one human race. He made so many different colors so that we can appreciate everybody, because everyone has a different culture, has a different background, different way of being. So we just have to try and appreciate everyone and look at the different, make everyone is beautiful in their own right. And just to let them know that if you are experiencing anything, be it racial discrimination or discrimination in its own right, to just call it out, talk to a friend about what you're saying, because if you harbor that yourself, it's mental to your mental health. So being able to speak out about the things that you're experiencing is very important, and that's what I like to say to them.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Sandrine, and also please tell people where they can watch this again, watch Unsilencing Black Voices if they want to share with their friends. And what would you like to say to people watching this, Sandrine?
Yeah, so the first question is just that you can watch the film on unsilencingBlackVoices.com, and that's just available on our website, but it's also available just on YouTube. So in relation to what I would say to other people who are experiencing discrimination in any form, is embracing that being different isn't a bad thing. I think that's something that I really wish I would have learned from such a young age, instead of like the self-loathing in it. So embracing difference. And if something does happen to you, like whether, as Catherine said, like if it's discrimination or like if it's physical or anything like that, is calling it out and finding one person that you trust to call it out and report it to them. Because I think if you're experiencing something like this, where it's going to chip away at you and it's going to make you have like a skewed way of viewing the world, because you're just going to be through so much hate and trauma. So by talking to other people, by finding people who are experiencing the same thing as you and speaking it out, is just so therapeutic. And it's just that you'll find out that you're just, as Catherine said, like, you're not alone. And just learning that being different isn't bad. It's literally one of the best things. So that's just my advice.
Thank you very much, Sandrine. And over to you, Kwesi.
I would like to echo what these two fantastic young ladies say. I'll say exactly the same thing, ditto, but I'll also like to add that surround yourself with appreciation and not tolerance. Surround yourself with people that truly cares and love you for who you are, and also love who you are as if you your difference and acknowledge your strengths as an individual, and that would carry you through. Always talk to someone. If someone hurts you, or you hurt or see something that may have affected you emotionally or psychologically, always speak to someone, and keep your chin up always. You will build a tenacity that will help you be the strength for someone else.
So a huge thank you to my wonderful panelists, Catherine Osikoya, Sandrine Owase, DAHRF, who are of course the filmmakers of Unsilencing Black Voices. As you heard from Sandrine, the website is unsilencingBlackVoices.ie. Please share widely, because it's a film that everybody needs to see, and it should be screened in all the schools. And a huge thank you to Kwesi Boyce, who's the founder and director and drama facilitator of MAD Youth Theatre Dundalk in County Louth. And I suppose if you're watching this wherever you are and you're struggling because you feel different, what I think I would have loved to have heard when I was 16 and back in Sri Lanka, my parents threw me out, and I became homeless when I told them I was a lesbian. I wish somebody had told me back then, I deserve love. So if you're struggling and you're watching this, please remember you deserve love, and you don't have to do a single thing to deserve love. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to work hard. Like a lot of us migrants feel that we have to work extra hard to almost earn our keep. You don't have to do any of that to deserve love, because you deserve love from the moment you took your first breath on this earth. So thank you so much for joining us today. I have to say a big thank you to Smashing Times for me to facilitate this screening. So and remember, this was screened as part of the Dublin Arts and Human Rights Festival 2020, hosted by Smashing Times International Centre for the Arts and Equality. For more information, you can always go to smashingtimes.ie. My name is Dil Vikramasinghe, and wherever you are, please look after yourself, and remember, you deserve love. So take care.